think most of our viewers will appreciate it. Any last closing words on this?
Um, well, I think it's not actually about the most wanted list, but it's something else that has been brought up in the FAQ itself, and that's the changes to round structure and cut structures. So I think so. Previously, it was 3 rounds for anything up to 8, 4 for anything up to 16,
Yep.
5 for anything up to 32, 6 to 64, 7 to 128, and 8 beyond that. So it was basically to the power of x, where x is
Yes.
yeah. Well,
Now it has been reduced by 1 for anything
pretty much
larger than 32, I
so
think.
basically they skipped they basically took out the 9 to 16 and the 17 to 32 brackets and mashed them into one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reasoning was they wanted to make tournament rounds shorter and put more of an emphasis and put less of an emphasis on the cut. And the top and the I disagree with where they drew the line between top 8 and top 16. But ultimately, I think the cut's less of an issue than reducing the number of Swiss rounds. I think that, especially with Netrunner or Netrunner, where the Swiss rounds where you aren't guaranteed a clear winner in Swiss because each round is 2 games rather than 1.
Yeah.
I think it's very important to have a lot of rounds just so you could have a lot more leeway, with games you can lose throughout the day.
Yeah, and I think it gives a better experience for the players because those who don't make the cut at least get what they paid for.
Games, yeah. So with most store championships in the world, barring ones in the southern UK, you're basically losing a round. So you're going from 5 rounds to 4 rounds because most SCs would have been 5-round top 32, 5 rounds because they'll be in the mid-20s with a top 4, top 8 cut. Now you are probably looking at 4 rounds and traveling a couple of hours for a 5-round versus a 4-round tournament. That's actually quite a big deal.
Yeah.
That's 25% more net runner, or 25 or 20% less net runner, depending on how you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not a big fan of the round changes, and I think it will really hurt the smaller communities, as they're just going to lose out on the really small communities are going to lose on the cut, and the smallish ones are going to lose the number of rounds.
Yep.
There's definitely a much bigger issue with regards to other games, such as Game of Thrones, where there's currently a massive argument on Card Game DB. But it's not very healthy for Netrunner either, and it's not. I don't think this is healthy for Netrunner's competitive game to reduce the number of rounds and to increase the amount of variance and the reliance on tiebreakers.
Oh, so they actually implemented the exact same cut and round scheme for...
No,
as well.
it's not the same. It's very similar, but it's not the same.
Okay.
And I can't really agree with the philosophy that they're trying to say that if you don't top the Swiss that you're going to be more dependent on tiebreakers, because I just feel that that's just a bit unfair. I think tiebreakers should be used as a last resort, as a tiebreaker, not as not as one of the main ways of determining who makes a cut.
Yeah.
One of the good things about Worlds was it was almost a completely clean cut,
Mhm.
and
The only one who made it
the
on...
person who
22
snuck
Prestige.
in had a first round bye because he won US Nationals, and he had played pretty much everyone else who had made the cut.
Yeah.
So I think that's a sort of justifiable unclean cut. But this, reducing the number of Swiss rounds will make it more likely that cuts will be nasty, that a lot of people go home disappointed because they missed a cut and strength of schedule, and it's just not a very positive change in general.
Yeah. What I would have done was to keep the old number of cuts, as in the 2 to the power of cuts, and just have a kind of a hard limit on and a hard upper limit on the number of rounds, Swiss rounds. Like 6 is usually a comfortable number of rounds for up to maybe regional level tournaments.
Yeah.
And nationals and above, you can go up to 7 or 8.
I think what would have also been, I mean, I also like to, I shouldn't bring Magic up as an example, because one, I don't even play much Magic, I just know the round structure.
Uh-huh.
But I think Magic does a generally quite a good job of with their cuts. Uh, they're generally, most people with a certain record, so it's usually X and one. So they've won X games and lost what they've won X minus one games and lost one game.
Mm-hmm.
Are generally guaranteed to make the cut.
Yep.
And well, obviously this doesn't completely apply to Netrunner because most people will lose more than one game over the course of the day. It's nice to have, knowing that a certain record will allow you into the cut without having to fight with people on stuff like tiebreakers is nice. And I'm not sure, and I'm not making sense.
Yeah, that would require quite a bit of restructuring. I think
Yeah.
it's fine as it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think they shouldn't have reduced the number of rounds by one for most people.
Yeah, I think small to mid level, as you said.
It
People
really
come
hurts.
here to play games.
Yeah.
Let them have some games.
Yeah, and I think the size of the cut, I would have probably just. I think that's less. That's probably something they should have shifted the boundaries down slightly. As I said, I think top 4 up to 20 is fine, but beyond 20, top 4 for 24 players, that's a bit harsh.
Yep.
And top 8, up to 96 people, that's very harsh.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, people do want to go home. You have to balance that out. But as far as I know, that the one in the tournament rules is just a suggestion, right? It's not prescription.
Well, you say that, but there are apparently reports of people being denied store championships this year because they were reported for not following FFG's rules.
Oh gosh.
So
man.
you don't really know. Hopefully, FFG will be lenient with people just saying, "Okay, we ran more/less Swiss rounds than your rule thing said."
Yeah. And
Uh,
the bright side is that for unofficial tournaments like ANRPCs, we can do it to the players' liking.
yeah, but NRPCs have always just most NRPCs have just been Swiss rounds anyway. Well, at least in the US, at least in the US.
That's true. Yeah. Okay.
NRPCs are actually surprisingly inconsistent. American ANRPCs are usually pure Swiss,
Uh-huh.
while British ANRPCs have, I think, almost all had a cut,
Okay.
except for the last chance qualifier.
Oh yeah, because you're getting a lot of people in.
Yeah, no one wanted to have a cut after grinding their way through the last chance qualifier just to
And
play.
having to play the next day.
So in summary, round structure, I don't agree with the cut number of Swiss rounds that most player numbers are going to see.
Yep.
And I think the cut sizes probably should have been shifted downwards slightly. So as a number of players to get a particular cut. So I don't think you need 97 players to get top 6. I think something like 64 or 70 people would be fine for a top 16.
Yeah, I think like 15 to 20% is a good range.
Yeah, I think this is they've gone a bit too low with this range.
Yeah. Alright, so this has gone on for very long, but thanks a lot, Tagore, for your great insight.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Ben.
So this 3-part series has gone on for quite a long time. I'll just do a summary of what I've covered so far and a bit more of my opinions on the NAPD Most Wanted list. I feel rather optimistic about it. If it is utilized as a tool to encourage use of the greater part of the card pool, that is something that we should applaud. And I like how it is light-handed. Instead, you don't feel that your freedom is being restricted too much with the NAPD Most Wanted list, because you can still play your combos, you can still play your Clone Chip Parasite combos, you can still play Astrobiotics. You just don't have enough influence to pack any other combos. Doesn't stop you from playing the combos, and this means that it doesn't render most of your cards, most of the NAPD wanted list cards to binder fodder, except for maybe prepaid voice pad. But that aside, I don't find too much issue with deck building freedom. In fact, I like the potentially organic nature of this list. Once it is deemed, for example, that prepaid voice pad can come off the chopping block, it will. And this is pretty good. I know a lot of people are opposed to this because it is a card game after all, and you shouldn't be backtracking and changing cards. But as the card pool expands, this kind of becomes an inevitable reality. I don't have many other card games to compare to, but I can compare to one of the games I've been rather invested in some time ago, and that's Dota 2. Um, in Dota 2, balance is handled pretty easily because anytime it's just that hero or characters in the game require changing, they just need to tweak a couple of numbers or change a couple of skills, and that is very easily accomplished by tweaking the numbers in the software. With Netrunner, it's not so easy because once you print the cards, they are all distributed. Editing existing cards means that they you need online errata or something similar, which new players might not catch on to. But that said, I still think it's needed. And in tournament play, most people who are involved in the community will know of these changes anyway. This is much more preferable to the alternative, which is waiting for several months for cycles upon cycles to come because they are designed in advance before the proper hard counter or meta shift can be made with new cards. That is far too long of a time to wait, during which the same deck strategy will be simply dominant for a very long time. The game will stagnate as a result. I mean, people can still play do you want to see the degenerate strategies of DLR Val persist on for 6 months? Think about it. The biggest problem with the NAPD most wanted list, in my opinion, is the corp side imbalance. I definitely feel that the corps got a better end of this deal, and through the card selection that the developers have made regarding which cards went on the list, and I think this is a very big trouble. A lot of cards were designed with the existence of Parasite and Clone Chip in mind, and these cards are very much irreplaceable because they provide they provide a lot of effects that later eyes will balance upon. So now that Parasite will see less play, there's a lot of problematic ice that ice is basically relevant once again, right? So that's going to be a big problem for a lot of runners to deal with, and frankly, not a lot of runners have solutions to that, as opposed to the corp side where cards are more or less replaceable. So if the win rate shifts too much to the corp's favor, a lot of tournaments could be decided by which side you get to play more often, and that is definitely not good for the competitive scene. I hope that won't be the case once the list hits, but we'll have to wait and see. So that's all I have to say about the wanted list. Thanks to everyone who commented on the part 1 of the video. There were lots and lots of very insightful comments, and I appreciate every single one of them. Thank you again, and happy net running. Goodbye.